folks, and welcome to the podcast. Today we're going to be talking to Phil Cardinale about his time at Dyno-Thane. So let's bring Phil on and learn a little bit more.
So how did you get started when you make the move from Columbia, leaving track to then you start Dyno-Thane?
Well, I didn't actually start Dyno-Thane. What happened was I left in, I guess it was the end of October, and 2001, and Bill Chrisman had Storm, obviously, but he had another brand that he was selling overseas because there was so many little international companies. Even when I had Track, we had separate companies overseas that guys would build private label balls for us. Anyhow, he had a company called me. He said, "Hey, I got a company in international. I'd like to try to bring it domestic." And it was Dyno-Thane, and they were doing very well in Korea, not so well in Japan, but doing okay in Korea. And he said, maybe we can make that work, and you and I will be partners. So we signed the partnership agreement. And right after that, I go overseas and I visit with ABS, which was my biggest customer at Track, and they're willing to buy the Dyno-Thane balls. So we hit the ground running. They were big. They were their biggest distributor in the world, and now they're buying my product, and they don't just buy a couple at a time; they buy thousands at a time. So my plan was to build a company, small company domestically that was strong internationally. So international would pay all the bills, and domestic would be all the profits. It was really a backwards way to do things, if you think about it. Most companies in the U.S. build a domestic ball and sell it overseas. I went the other way. If they liked the ball in Japan, I built it and launched it domestically. So when I was over there, I met with them and we talked a bit. We ended up with the kangaroo shoes as part of Dyno-Thane, Dynaroos, because of that relationship. The shoes were great. We could import it. We bought shoes from them. They bought balls from us. We had a fantastic relationship. And it gave me a little more strength domestically until I got my Track customers to come over to my Dyno-Thane brand. So
I remember originally when you imported the ABS shoes, they actually had ABS on them, and then a later run had Dynaroos on them.
That's exactly right. We bought the initial run out of their inventory. And, we had such a great break because Dexter had a quality problem. Right around that time, we started bringing those shoes in. And it was unbelievable. It was sort of probably part of the reason Dyno-Thane ended up at Columbia because of the cost at the time to have a shoe business was astronomical, which had to tie up in cash. And Storm was not as strong as they are today. So there was a cash flow issue. They needed some extra balls built. So we started to play around with Columbia. But when I was at my days at Dyno-Thane, we hit the ground running. We did the Vendetta, which is a great name because I left Columbia and I was a little pissed off. So we had Vendetta and then we had the Energy and the Element, and we had all of this new stuff coming out. And then one of the things I had worked on at Columbia and never really had a chance to use it was the Soaker cover stock. And I showed it to Chrisman, and he said, "That's fantastic. We'll do that as a Dyno-Thane cover." So, that's how that came about, the Soaker cover stock, which, I used to go to trade shows and put discs out from other companies' balls. I got slices, and I would hand out an eyedropper with some oil to people in the audience and say, "All right, rub it on this one and raise your hand when it's gone." And the one guy that got the Dyno-Thane cover stock, his hand would go up like in 5 seconds, and the other guys would be sitting there, waiting and waiting and waiting. So it was a great selling point.
I remember that sales.
Yeah, the guys on tour were loving it. They had a ball that you never had to worry about the cover getting cut, so oil soaked. It just sucked it right through.
Yeah.
And we won a bunch of times because of that. Walter Ray won a couple of times with the Black Vendetta, the particle one. It was great. We hit the ground running, and a lot of guys came with me from my Track days, the pros.
Yeah.
And Jaros won the Tournament of Champions. I mean, it was just pretty cool. And again, it wasn't hard for me to grow that company because I had a strong Track following. And I guess people didn't realize that it's not necessarily the brand, it's the person running the brand and what they bring to the table.
Yeah.
So we did well because of that. Yeah. And it lasted a while. I mean, it was a bunch of years until 2007. The reason Dyno-Thane ended up at Columbia was, Bill Crispin was looking for some balls to be built. There was a big strain on his cash flow with the shoe business. He went to Columbia and asked them to build some product for him for Storm, and Columbia's asked me if I would come back, and I said, well, I'm not coming back if you have the same people still working there. And literally a year or two after that, I got a phone call and said, "Oh, they're all gone. You coming back?"
That was mighty nice.
Yeah, it was pretty nice. It was really cool. And I went back there, and I was in charge of. I was vice president of sales and business development. So, the shoe business was doing very well for us. Dyno-Thane was still growing. The track brand had. This is unbelievable, but I stole as much of that business as I could from track. Now I go back and I'm trying to get the track business back to track. So that was, the same thing just happened a couple of months ago. So it's just like deja vu all over again.
Yeah. So coming up with the Soaker cover stock, how did you go about that?
Well, it's an additive. The problem with additives, when you put them into system, a lot of times what they'll do is they ruin the way the system runs. Yep. If it's a hard particulate, it'll chew up the impellers and the pump and all of that stuff. But anyhow, we found some stuff that wasn't like that. It's an oil absorbent. We put that in there at different percentages, and we came up with a great cover stock that absorbed oil but didn't soak it into the point where it became oil soaked. We put the ball in a 5-gallon pail of oil, and it didn't stop hooking. We let it sit in there for days. It was just a unique product, and it was an additive that I never got to use at Columbia because I had left. But I had that in my back pocket as soon as we got the Storm, and we decided to grow the Dyno-Thane brand. Again, the beauty of it was everything I built was sold because it was going overseas.
Yeah.
So all I did was build some extra for domestic, and then that took off. And I had all the relationships with the distributors, so it wasn't that hard to get new brands going. I sort of got a knack for that. It was a lot of fun.
As we go through this series, everybody will find out that you have a very good knack for that.
Yeah, you're right.
So, every company has balls that don't sell well.
Yeah.
What was a ball that didn't sell well for you at Dyno-Thane?
Well, see, the beauty of that, and I can't say it didn't sell. That we didn't have a ball that didn't sell well because we built them for the customer overseas. So he bought them all.
Yeah.
So the only thing we built was a small amount for domestic, and the only time we'd build more is if those sold. So
that makes it very easy then.
It was simple. And that was a great model because I built, let's say for argument's sake, Japan ordered a container of balls or 2 containers of balls. You built 5,000 of them.
Yep.
Okay, you ship them 4,600.
Yeah.
I have 400. So we sell them to the distributors the first round, and they'll say this ball's selling well. So what we do is we build another 500. So I never had a ball that I said, oh my God, what am I going to do with this? I can't sell it.
Yeah.
And that goes back to, I didn't have a bad ball from the days of the critical mass on. So I'm not used to having that as a problem at this point in my life. I'm sitting there going, well, my model can't get hurt. Now, was I short balls domestically? Absolutely. Absolutely. But sometimes you look at the tipping point. Is it worth it to be short balls or have to close out a bunch of balls?
Yeah, for sure.
So it was good. It worked out really good. It was a great time. The company grew leaps and bounds because of the shoe business and because I was easy to steal from my track brand. All my track guys were coming back. So Dyno-Thane became the new track.
Yeah.
At the time.
And you're in the at the time, the Dyno-Roo shoes were made of kangaroo leather, which
Absolutely.
was something completely different.
Yes.
And changed the industry because then, I don't know, maybe the next year or 2 years later, Dexter comes out with their kangaroo leather shoe as well.
Right.
To try to compete with you. But by then, you had a huge chunk of the market.
Oh, my God. And the difference was, it's funny because the problem with the kangaroo shoe was there's 2 types of kangaroo. There's free range and farm grown.
Like chickens.
Like chickens, right? So the free range, the leather was different than the farm grown. Okay, and it was cheaper. The free range was cheaper than the farm grown because kangaroos are rats with feet, big feet, and a pouch in Australia.
Yeah.
They're just everywhere, right? And so the Australian government would hand out X amount of permits for people to kill them, and then they would sell the pelts. Right, it was perfect. But when there was a drought, which happened, there were no pelts available because the drought had controlled the population. So they weren't handing out as many permits. But my source was not free range only, it was farm grown. So my kangaroo leather was softer and a higher quality. Dexter didn't do that. They went the other way. So they got in trouble. They ran out. But by then we had grown our market and even expanded into an entry-level shoe and a 2 or 3 price points in between. But all we concentrated on was the high-end kangaroo shoe. And my favorite color shoe was black, period. Yeah. Oh, don't you have a blue one? No, we have black. Don't you have no, we have black. And again, that controlled the inventory.
Yeah.
And that really was a fantastic business for us. But again, it was very monetarily consuming. And, Crispin at the time was not as big as he is now. And it was more of I really can't balance this. Let's work a deal with Columbia. And I went back to Columbia. So.
Yeah, it's like I remember import when the shoe parts would come in. They would all be from ABS, and you couldn't figure out what they were for or what they did.
I remember that. Yeah, we had to have our own labels put on them. After a while, it became crazy.
Yeah,
sure. But that was that was a great business. And at the time, like I said, Dexter had a problem with their quality. I guess they were in Mexico at the time, had some issues with the glue, and we were standing right there to say, okay, we'll be happy to sell your shoes.
Yeah.
And we had a big chunk. We really did.
Yeah. Let's talk about when and why you left Dyno-Thane.
Well, I didn't really leave. I got Dyno-Thane went over to Columbia because Bill was trying to get balls built by Columbia, and it was cheaper for him to say, I'll give you Dyno-Thane, you build me X amount of balls. I'll give you the shoe business, you build me X amount of balls. And then when that runs out, I'll pay you for you to build me more balls. And at the time, Columbia called me up and said, hey, you want to come back and help us run the sales department? And I said to Bill, whatever you want to do. And he said, you know what? That's fine with me. I'll be happy to do that. And it worked out great. I mean, it worked out great for everybody. Right now, a company that I had started in between fell apart a little bit, but it was good. It was a good time, and Crispin got the balls he wanted built, and I ended up back at Columbia. Unfortunately, they sold the company. Not shortly after when I got there, they decided they didn't want to be in the business anymore.
Yeah.
And that's when they sold all the brands to Ebonite in 2007. And that made things a little different.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So that kind of leads us into the next segment of our video. So
yeah,
we'll talk about going to 900 Global and being at 900 Global. So
okay, yep.
Okay. So
good.
Well, that concludes the time with Phil at Dyno-Thane. Be sure to stay tuned for part 3, where Phil will talk about his time at 900 Global. Be sure to like and follow us, and see you in the next video.